finding your brand, voice, how storytelling, content, and social media can turn attention into real audience connections. Many brands struggle to find their voice. What is the first step companies should communicate more authentically with their audience? Welcome to the Vector Art Podcast. We're here speak with marketers, creators, industry leaders about what it really takes to bring strong brands today. Today, I am joined by Jamie Shine, owner of Clearly Conveyed Communication, and we diving into the topic finding your brand, voice, how storytelling, content, and social media can turn attention into real audience connections. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm
I'm
happy
going to
to be
take you.
here.
Thank you so much. And the first question on the screen is many brands struggle to find their voice. What is the first step companies should communicate more authentically with their audience?
Well, first, change your mindset.
Yeah,
Most businesses and brands today are still in the broadcasting mindset where they're trying to send information out on a static medium. And that's just not where we are today. So,
right.
with the explosion of social media and digital media in general, that has ushered in a new era of two-way communication and conversations
Right.
between brands and their audiences. So that's the first step is changing your mindset because if you're still trying to broadcast information, you're going to struggle today. That's not
Yeah.
what people are looking for. They want to engage with you and build relationships with you. So
True.
start by changing your mindset and then you can move forward to creating your strategy and everything else.
Well, first thing to change your mindset and stop broadcasting is what I understand. And I mean, it's such a small definition, but such a large objective. Well, the second question is you often talk about speaking the language of your audience. How brands can truly understand what their audience wants to hear.
Well, first you can start by talking to them. And this is where engaging with your audience comes in handy. Talk to them, ask them for their feedback, but learn
Right.
about them. Market research is a fantastic tool. So you can learn a lot about your audience, move beyond simple demographics to psychographics and behavioral
Uh-huh.
characteristics. How does your audience think? What are their values, their attitudes? What drives them to buy? How do they want
Right.
to
Right.
interact with brands? So learn as much as you can about them so that you can help them, so that you can, improve their life, whatever it is that you do. Go beyond, how can I get
Beautiful.
them to buy my product and service, but how can I help improve their life or make their life a little easier? So, first of all, the more you know about your audience, the better you can tailor your message and your
Yes.
content to them.
The better you know
Um,
them. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. But then also, when I talk about speaking their language, when you understand who they are, it's okay to use terms that your audience uses. Everyone says, oh, don't use jargon, don't use, and that's true. Like, it's not good, necessarily to use industry terms that your audience won't understand. But
Yeah.
if you have an audience of medical professionals, for instance, you can use medical terms, just make sure you use them correctly because they're going to know if you don't. But, speak in their language that they understand. So just make sure that speaking to them,
In the right
with
language.
their
Yeah.
yes, with their language
Which your
in,
audience
in
wants to
terms that they
hear.
can yes,
True.
absolutely.
True.
So it
True.
should, but it never hurts, take a deep dive. This is why I always say we're not in the era of mass marketing anymore. You really
Yeah.
need to understand your audience and know who you're talking to and creating content for.
Of course, and it's very important to know your audience and to know what they want to hear. Unlike you just said, do not use jargon, do not do technical term which they don't understand, which is right exactly. So the third question, content is everywhere today. What makes a message stand out and actually connect with people?
Your message connects when it resonates with your audience. And this is
Okay.
a great follow up to what we just talked about. When you understand your audience, when people see content or hear a message that they feel is directed at them or was made for them,
Right.
they see themselves reflected in it, or, hey, this is for people like me. This speaks to my life experience, or
Right.
this speaks to what I do for a living. Either you deliver some insight and they learn something that they can use in their life, or you entertain them and make them laugh at the end of a long day.
Wow.
The more your message speaks to your actual audience and is
Right.
targeted to them, it's more likely going to connect with them and kind of break through all of this digital clutter because you're right, there is a lot of noise out there, a lot of content being created. So that's why it needs to be targeted.
True.
Generic content doesn't do a lot of good today. It needs to be targeted to your audience specifically. And this is why, building a community can really help you connect and find your people.
Contact, connect with people. True. I mean, the fourth question, how has social media changed the way brand build relationship with their audience?
I think it's really changed the focus from transactional to lifetime customer value. So
Right.
instead of just focusing on selling them one order or one product, you're looking at how can we build long-term relationships with these customers to
True.
have interactions with them for the rest of their lives. That's what smart brands are doing. They're really changing the focus. And this is where, building a community can really come in handy. So you're having that relationship and having those touch points with your audience in between purchases. It's not just when they buy something. You're bringing them together with other people who like your brand. You're encouraging them to share their story about your
Right.
brand. What was their first touch point with your brand? When did they buy their first product? You can encourage them to create user generated content, which you can share and spotlight. But people like meeting other people with similar interests, and that can
Right.
include your brand. So bring them together. Plus, it keeps you in contact with them. Like I said, in between purchases, people aren't buying all the time. How can you stay engaged with them? And turning customers into brand advocates. You can really help them, they love your brand, help them spread that message and talk to other people who love your brand and
Wow.
share a message with the world. So that I think it really smart brands today are not just focusing
Huge.
on single transactions. They're really trying
They
to
are
build
smart
long-term
brands are focusing on their result on the social media. Why did the customer buy my product? Proper research, proper feedback, and then recommendations, and then testimonials. That's the formula which big brands are applying, and they're successful doing that. Like you just said, you should know your audience. You should know what your audience taste is. Everything is connected to every other question if you see.
Yeah, absolutely. And that some other benefits when you build an active community and you maintain engagement with your customers regularly,
Right.
you can use that to test new products or get their feedback. These are people who understand your brand pretty well.
True.
Help them kind of utilize that as a resource, gather their feedback, hey, test new products, get their feedback, maybe launch a beta version of a new website or something to your most
Right.
loyal fans or biggest brand advocates and get their feedback on it and make them realize they're a big part of your brand. You
True.
value that feedback. You
True.
want them, you want that two-way communication.
True. The last question for business trying to grow online today, what is the one content strategy they should focus on immediately?
Well, first, I have to go back to this. The very first step is to define your target audience and
Wow.
understand who they are. Because again, you have to know who you're talking to and who you're creating content for.
Right,
So
right.
that will help you determine your content strategy, what type of content are we creating? How are we
True.
distributing it? And where
True.
are we going to build our communities?
Right,
You want to meet your audience where they are. So
right, right.
you have to understand where they're currently living online so that you can meet them there and not ask them to go someplace new, meet them where they're at. It takes a
Yes.
lot of time and effort to build an active, engaged community. So you want to meet them where they're at and put your resources where you're going to succeed. So
Wow, wow.
first and foremost, definitely define your target audience. I know people are probably going to get tired of me saying that, but it really does drive so much of what you do.
Exactly. It does make sense. It made a lot of sense, of
Yes.
course.
But having said that, I do want to give a shout out. Do not sleep on long form and text-based
Yes,
content. I know
of
that's
course.
not what people were
And do not
expecting.
broadcast the main message.
Yes, yes, but keep an eye out on long form and text-based
Right,
content. It's making a
right.
comeback. People are looking for something a little more substantial. Short form video has been so hot the last few years, but I think people are looking for something with a little more substance today that
Of
they can
course.
kind of sink their teeth into. It's like when you eat something sugary, it tastes really good at the beginning, but then there's no nutrition or substance to to
And
hold
if
it
you
to hold
see,
on to.
and if you see, it's written a big list of nutrition, but there is nothing in there.
Yeah, and you can utilize some of the new technology and utilize it to help your content creation process. But
True,
I'm telling
true.
you, I'm really focused on long form and text-based content in
Uh-huh.
2026. So
Yes,
don't sleep on it's funny for as much as people say that things have moved on or people have questioned whether blogging is still relevant, but
right.
you look at what's happening in the digital marketing landscape. LinkedIn has LinkedIn articles. They're encouraging people to publish on their platform. Substack is
Yes,
blowing up. This is
yes.
all, it's blogging in other forms, Medium. So I don't think it's dead at all. I think everyone's just trying to take that audience and build it on their platform. That's all.
Of course, you are right.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jamie. It was such a knowledgeable, five question with a lot of knowledge today. Audience who are listening this would be very thankful that they got to real direct answers on the questions. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing such a valuable insight on storytelling, authentic messaging, and building stronger audience connections. Thank you, everyone, listening to Vector Art Podcast. If you've enjoyed this conversation, do not forget to follow, share, and stay tuned for the next episode featuring leaders shaping the future of brands and marketing. See you in the next episode. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks for having me on.